Nigdy w życiu, 2003 Polish rom-com, very successful at the time of its release. I've never seen it. This was based on a novel by Katarzyna Grochola and stars Danuta Stenka. Judyta is a 38-year-old woman living in Warsaw with her boring husband and a teenage daughter. She works at a newspaper letter column responding to people's questions. One day her life breaks apart when the husband says his lover is pregnant. He has a lover in the first place, his lover is pregnant and he wants a divorce. Suddenly alone, aside from the daughter of course, she decides to basically fuck off from the big city and build a little house in the countryside, all the while lamenting that she's done with men forever and of course slowly falling in love with a colleague from work. So let's be honest, this is not a good movie. It's very formulaic and predictable, and as far as rom-coms go, it's just very run-of-the-mill. And technically speaking, it's simply dreadful, but I'll get to that point later. But also, in the spirit of being honest, I do admit I had quite a bit of fun watching it, both intentional fun and unintentional fun. The intentional kind comes from a lot of the humor actually being surprisingly genuinely funny. I did laugh at many of the jokes and character interactions, and I particularly enjoyed the dynamic between Judyta and her daughter Tosia. I also thought both Stenka and Joanna Jabuczyńska, who plays Tosia, are very, very good and carry the film. I think that as much as the film has aged by now, it's evident to me that it was at least trying to be pretty progressive at the time. I mean, even the simple fact of the main character not being a young hot chick, still today it's not often that you see an almost 40-year-old woman as the leading lady in the film, especially Hollywood and American films prefer younger actresses. Now, as for the unintentional ways I've had fun with this, again, on the topic of aging, the film has aged hilariously and is now this wonderful time capsule of the early 2000s. On the one hand, you have the progressive at the time stuff, which now sounds very, very funny, such as the 15-year-old Tosia knowing what an erect penis is, and that being a huge deal for the mother and kind of a shock. Or people, adult people might I add, openly talking about sex, or the idea that the full-time employed woman does not have to make breakfast and dress up her husband and prepare his tie every single day. That things that seem totally reasonable and normal now and have for a while, but were probably considered a bit more radical feminism at the time, especially in Poland, which is a rather conservative country. I also had a laugh at pretty much everything involving the technical, the technology at the time. So a lot of one of the main subplots of the film revolves around email, and it was just hysterical to me that in every single scene people were still referring to that as electronic mail in these very serious voices. Also, there was one scene where I had to pause the film and think about it, because there's a scene where Judyta tries to use the computer at work to download her electronic mail. And she mentions that she has to do it there because she doesn't have a phone at home yet. And I was like, I had to pause the film and think, and I was like, hang on a second, what phone? What do you mean? Smartphones were not around at the time. And then I remembered that the internet used to be handled through these dial-up phone modem connections. So you needed to have a phone in order to have an internet connection at your home. And I was like, holy shit, I even forgot about that. I'm pretty sure there's a whole generation of people right now who have no idea that was even the case in the first place. So it is fun in that regard. I also had a laugh at pretty much every scene with a needle drop of a terrible Polish pop song, which there are a couple. And last but not least, the climax is the absolute pinnacle of nonsense. Adam, the love interest, leaves a message to Judyta because they've been on the outs. He leaves a message to Judyta saying that he wants to patch things up. He wants her to sort of talk to him, forgive him, and to give him one more chance. And he says, I'll be waiting for you until Wednesday, 10 p.m. If you don't come, I'm leaving for this long journey, long trip to the Amazon forest. I don't know when I'll be back. So of course she reads that a bit late, desperately tries to drive there to make it on time. And there's a cut to Adam, who's just packing his backpack with maps and shit, and the clock strikes 10 and he gets ready to leave the apartment, which implies that despite still waiting and hoping that this woman of his dreams comes back, he did already buy plane tickets for the very same evening and was fully ready to go. Like, I just find that so funny, and something that would never happen in real life, never ever. So of course that led to me laughing uncontrollably all the way through the end of the movie, which was probably not the intention of the filmmakers, but did bring me joy nonetheless. Final point, I promised to talk about the technical side of the film. It looks like absolute dog shit. Flat lighting, boring camera angles, terrible blocking and staging of the shots, sets and costumes that look cheap. Everything about this film is the opposite of cinematic, and just screams to me that it's an episode of one of those terrible early 2000s soap operas from Poland, which is probably close to truth because I fully expect it was made by the same people with the same equipment. It is, I mean, as a cinema enjoyer, as a person who likes to watch a film and think to themselves, wow, this looks great, I would love to have a painting of that scene. As a person like that, it is depressing how badly the film is shot. But to sum it all up, I think that is also, weirdly enough, part of its charm at this point, and part of it being so much of its time. It is like going back in time to when I was a kid and would watch all these TV shows and soap operas on Polish television with my mom, and so it was a fun time watching it for me. Do I think it was a good movie? Again, no, not by a long shot, not even close, but it was an enjoyable experience.